everybody, Matt here from Matt's Movies, Music and More, welcoming you to this week's movie review. The movie I've picked to talk about today is actually a sports documentary which was released in 2017. The documentary is entitled 89, which is the story of the English Football League's 1988-1989 winning season by Arsenal, the North London Football Club. This was the first time that Arsenal had won the Football League since the 1971-1972 season, in which they had great talent under manager Bernie Mee, with people like Charlie George, Ray Kennedy, Liam Brady, Alan Sunderland and Pat Jennings and David O'Leary, to name a few. But one of the key players who was involved in that squad would come back as manager, which was George Graham. Now, what I want to mention is that this is a significant documentary because of the fact that it had been such a long time that Arsenal had won the league, given that the 70s and 80s domination was by Liverpool, who were the best team in England and the best team in Europe, given the fact that they were winning very successfully in the European Cup, where I think they won it 4 times between the late 70s and early 80s, with Nottingham Forest sandwiched in between the middle. Now, with this movie, Liverpool, I think they might have won the league at least 6 or 7 times in the 80s at that time, with Everton, I think, also winning a title in there as well. But with Arsenal's team in the 80s, they were doing really very little. And a new manager was brought in, which was they hired George Graham, who was their ex-player, in 1986. And he was managing relatively successfully at Millwall. So to get George Graham in at that time, the Arsenal team and all the supporters around them were probably looking at it as a bit of a risk, given that Millwall weren't exactly a huge team. And so with it, he overhauled the team by getting rid of players that were probably at the end of their careers, people like Tony Woodcock and Graham Rix, and I'm trying to think as well who else they got rid of. They got rid of people like Kenny Sampson, who would go and join Newcastle that year. And with those players sort of being high earners, and obviously the fees were pretty decent for those players back then, Graham invested it and spent really sort of cleverly with signing players that he felt would fit the team. So people came in like Nigel Winterburn, who would obviously go on to be very, very popular and important in the Arsenal team for a long period of time. And of course, Lee Dixon, who everyone loves on as a pundit now. And in that team that he inherited, you had people like Alan Smith, who I think he signed from Leicester City, and you had people from the youth academy such as Paul Merson, who was an upcoming 17, 18-year-old striker, I think, in this season that he played. And obviously you've got John Lukic, the goalkeeper, who would obviously go on to play for Leeds United later on. And yeah, I mean, there's too many players for me to mention, but you've got Tony Adams, obviously, who was made club captain, I think, that season. So that was a big statement, really, by George Graham to do that. And so really what 88-89 season happened was that Arsenal started the season really well. I believe it was a home thrashing they did of Wimbledon. And what happened was they were pretty much top of the league for a while. And Liverpool were pretty much close on their tails the whole time. And at the time, the English clubs could focus more on English domestic cups, given the fact that in 1984, the Heysel disaster happened, in which Liverpool fans, when Liverpool played Juventus, there was a stadium collapse, and basically English football clubs were banned from Europe for a period of 5 years, and Liverpool got an extra year on that as well. But so that it really meant that Liverpool could focus on the English success. So they won numerous leagues, numerous FA Cups and stuff like this. And with that really helped Liverpool become the dominant force of the 1980s. When you look at Arsenal in this season, really this was a team that became a team, not necessarily an individualist team like you would see nowadays with football players. You can look at this team and go, there's a lot of players there that you wouldn't have guessed would play for a team like Arsenal, but it worked with Graham's formations and his strategic gameplay. They did have a bit of a blip during the latter part of the season, in which they dropped a few points with draws and defeats here and there. So it gives Liverpool a real chance to sort of take over in between that time. Now, what I want to say is that I believe this happened in, I think it was April of 1989, was when Liverpool played Nottingham Forest in the FA Cup semi-final. It was played at Sheffield Wednesday's ground, Hillsborough. Now, as many people will know, the Hillsborough disaster claimed 96 lives that day, and because of it, the Football League decided to suspend the English Football League for 2 weeks. So it meant that the season would actually overrun its course. So during that time that they weren't playing, this really helped Arsenal slum a little bit, because the momentum of them winning had a real knock-on effect, the fact that they didn't play for 2 weeks. So it meant that when they came back, they were picking up these defeats and draws here and there, and Liverpool were really taking advantage. And so it was this real close horse race. The fact that when the final day came, Liverpool would actually play Arsenal at Anfield, and at that day, Liverpool were top of the league, 3 points clear, and basically all Arsenal needed to do on that day was to beat Liverpool with a 2-goal difference, and they would equal points, obviously, but they would obviously go on and win the league. So after a bit of a feisty first half, which finished 0-0 in the first half, a goal came in the second half from Alan Smith, which was a big, important goal. But Liverpool's defence was so key, and Arsenal were defending most of the night, but they were really containing Liverpool very well. And it came down to the final minutes of the game, literally 89th, 90 minutes. And one player who was Arsenal Youth Academy product, which is Michael Thomas, he actually popped up and scored the winning goal. So it was 2-0 to Arsenal, which meant Arsenal won the league that day thanks to that goal. Now, subsequent years would go on later, such as that what was quite ironic was that Michael Thomas, who scored the winning goal against Liverpool, would actually join Liverpool a number of years later. But this particular season has gone down as being one of the greatest because of the fact it was so close. And it has actually been used as the main story for Nick Hornby's famous book Fever Pitch, in which it focuses on an Arsenal fan and his relationship with his girlfriend, and also the relationship with his club. Now, with this, I really wanted to do this film because being a big football fan, I love football documentaries, and I'll watch any football documentary. Arsenal's not my football team. I will be totally honest with you, that's not the team I support at all. I don't really want to say who I support just in case anyone trolls me or anything like that. But let's just say that this was a really good documentary, and they talked to many of the playing staff and the manager, of course, and some of the subsequent players that would come along over the years, players like Ian Wright, who would obviously play for Arsenal and stuff like that. But this really helped Arsenal build on their momentum, and Graham was their most successful manager for like a number of years with this, and they would go on to win FA Cup and League Cup double, I think in 92, 93 or 93, 94 season, something like that. And obviously unfortunate circumstances meant that he would lose his job years later due to a bung scandal, and in his absence, after a few managers here and there that didn't really work out, Arsenal then managed to get the right manager at the right time, which was Arsene Wenger in 1996 or 97. And basically, Arsene Wenger is probably Arsenal's most successful manager, especially when they went on in the 2002-2003 season, I think it was, in which they became the unbeatables. They actually went the entire Premier League season without defeat. So that's something that even Manchester City still haven't done to this day. So they haven't won a league title without losing at least one match. So Arsenal have got that record, so that's a pretty impressive one. But what did I think of the documentary? I thought it was really entertaining, and it's up there with many of the greatest football stories. And it doesn't matter if you support Arsenal or if you don't support Arsenal. this is a documentary you should really check out. And given the 80s music that they use in it as well, and some of the video shots that are in the film, it really makes you feel like you're back in 1989. So I would definitely give this a thumbs up, even though that's not really my rating system here, but I really enjoyed it. So what did you think of 89? Have you guys seen it? Were you even alive, or were you even there at Anfield back in that game and that day? If you were, please like and leave some comments down in the video as well. Check out also the Facebook, Twitter and Instagram posts. It will keep you up to date with all the stuff that's upcoming. So yeah, thank you very much everybody, and we'll catch up with you very soon. All the very best.